Hello, I am Gergo Boros, a Ph.D. student from the Liberty University. I live in Seattle, Washington State in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. For the local history research course, I chose a topic from my home state by the Pacific Northwest Tribe Wars. Many of us never considered it, but there was also many fights and wars between local natives and white men. So I'm going to give you some facts about these wars. The Pacific Northwestern and the Plateau Indian Wars emerged when prospectors and explorers found gold there. As a result, war erupted in the region, while the Indians and prospectors conflicted over gold acquisition. The United States Army involved themselves in Spokane 1858, the Rugo River and the Yakima Wars of 1855 to 1856. The wars were actions to force tribes onto reservations in the eastern regions of Washington and Oregon states. The first war about the Cayuse War. The war combined the military actions of a few firefighters, peace negotiations, and the pursuit of people who killed the missionaries. The Cayuse War is always considered a two-year campaign associated with the Oregon Provisional Government in 1847 and the Oregon Territory Government in 1848 to 1850. After several years of simmering tensions between Indians and white settlers, a minor group of Cayuse soldiers murdered 14 whites and captured others in the White Man Massacre of November 29, 1847. Marcus Whiteman, a Cayuse suspect, was a leading cause of the war. Whiteman was a religious leader and the practicing physician, thus considered a shaman. Whiteman caused the war because he was associated with the death of their families, thus triggering the calamity to pave the way for new immigrants. The Cayuse tribe members sought revenge by attacking the mission on November 29, 1847. In 1850, the military captured 5 Cayuse soldiers and attempted to murder the Whitemans, which ended the war. The military commission convicted and hanged the 5 soldiers after the bloodshed war. The second one I'm talking about the Yakima War. Historians also consider it the Plateau conflict because it occurred in the northwestern Plateau, Yakima, and Shoatlwater areas. The tribal allies called the Plateau home, a secondary region for natives. The war chiefly occurred in the southern inner region of the current Washington state. The primary cause of the Yakima War was when the soldiers retaliated. The event was when the Yakima soldiers killed miners and retaliated in isolated groups. However, the natives murdered Bolon after federal government called the Indian sub-representative to investigate. As a result, the government started the Yakima conflict by sending more soldiers to their valley in October 1855. The war escalated even further when parties discovered gold near Fort Colville. The situation culminated in several miners crossing Yakima lands through Natchez Passes and wars that rapidly led to violence. The US military defeated the Yakima in 7 years. The war ended in 1858 after other Yakima leaders surrendered. The next one I'm talking about the Puget Sound War. This war was an armed disagreement in Washington, mainly in Puget Sound region from 1855 to 1856. The war was between local militia, the US military, and the native groups of the Puyallup, Muckleshoot, Quileute, and Nisqually. The riders from the Tlingit and the Haida are another war component who started conflicted with the US Navy during simultaneous invasions of the natives of Puget Sound. Historians associate the conflict with the Battle of Seattle in 1856. The war is limited in territory impact, magnitude, losses of lives, and implementation of a cardinal leader of the conflict, Chief Lesky and Nisqually. A synchronous Yakima War could have been responsible for some scenarios of the Puget Sound conflict, like a Battle of Seattle. On January 26, 1856, the Battle of Seattle emerged when the Native American tribe members invaded Seattle. The region was a Washington-based residential area then, where residents had branded the place after Chief Seattle, a Duwamish and Skokomish leader. Next one, I'm talking about the Rugo River Wars. The Rugo River conflicts were equipped wars from 1855 to 56 between volunteers, domestic forces, and the natives. These war participants were commonly grouped under Rugo River Indian designs in the Valley of Rugo River region in the south of Oregon. The tension classification involves the aggression from 1855 to 56, but several previous skirmishes were in the 1830s. The skirmishes were between the Native Americans and the European American settlers, conflicting over resources and territory boundaries. The primary cause of the Rugo River conflict was when the white settlers and miners invaded the indigenous people of the Rugo River and ambushed their territory. The final Rugo River War started as early as October 8, 1855, in the morning when self-proclaimed volunteers invaded the Rugo Valley inhabited by the natives. The conflict ended in June 1856 when the government eliminated most natives in the southwestern Oregon to the coastal reservation and region deemed the Sauk-Suiattle Reservation. Next one, I'm talking about the Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Palos War. Historians consider this war a second phase of the Yakima War. The war is about many encounters between Kalispel, Palos, Skitswish, Spokane, and the northern Puyallup against the U.S. military forces in Washington and Idaho states. The war was caused by retribution for skirmishes in the summer of 1858, which emerged when the party, including the Spokanes, Coeur d'Alene, Palos, Yakimas, and other tribes, refused passage to their territory. A combined force of almost 1,000 Skitswish, Palos, and Spokane intruded and defeated the military of about 165 American soldiers under Colonel Edward Steptoe at the Pine Creek Battle. A huge military force under Colonel George Wright was commissioned to suppress the tribes. Wright's men defeated the Allied tribes on September 1, 1858 at the Battle of 4 Lakes. After some days, the soldiers defeated another Indian military force when the Kalispel joined the force in the Battle of Spokane Plains. The Battle of Spokane Plains is essential because the army murdered over 700 Indian horses to block them from being misused by Indian warriors. The other war I'm talking about, the Snake War. The conflict was an irregular war between the Snake Indians, a settler term that the nation used to describe the western Shoshone groups, northern Paiute and Bannock, residing with the Snake River against the U.S. The war occurred in crucial territories like California, Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. The estimated casualties from both sides of the war were about 1,800 dead, captured, or wounded individuals. The Snake War resulted from the escalating tensions for many years between the natives and the settlers encroaching to their lands. The natives were also disgusted by the settlers competing for water and game, thus limiting resources. The explorers also threatened the native Indians because they paved the way for the other settlers in their lands. Even though explorers had a low effect on the natives, the Shoshone Indians murdered 8 explorers in October 1851 at the Fort Hall, Idaho. Unlike other Pacific Northwestern wars, this war had some notable leaders on the two sides. Next war, I'm talking about the Nez Perce War. The conflict was an equipped war in 1877 in the western part of the country. The war pitted many brands of the Nez Perce of the natives and their associates. The Nez Perce was a minor band of the Puyallups that the Bulls had and the Red Echo led against the U.S. military. The 1877 war was an outcome of 2 unrelated events. The first event was unjust treaty negotiation that ceded from tribal territories and the Wallowa Valley raid where many people were murdered. The battle is associated with Chief Joseph, a Nez Perce leader who officially surrendered his military soldiers to General Nelson Miles and General Oliver Otis Howard at mountain territory, Bear Paw Mountain. This action ended the war effectively. The next one I'm talking about the Bannock War. The conflict was between the Bannock Paiute soldiers and the US military in the northeastern Oregon and Idaho from June to August 1878. The Bannock tribe had almost 700 people because of other Shoshone people. Chief Buffalo Horn, murdered while fighting in 1878, led the Bannock. After his demise, the Bannocks acquired Egan as their chief. The Umatilla party had murdered his soldiers in July, an event that spread in the camp in subterfuge. Brigadier General Oliver Howard led the US military, which involved the 21st Infantry Volunteers and the regiment. Neighboring regions further commissioned soldiers to the area. The war finished in 1878 in August and September. After other militia spread, soldiers from Bannock Paiute gave in while most retreated to the Fort Hoare Reservation. The next one I'm talking about the Sheep Eater Indian War. The 1879 conflict was an eventual native conflict. The Indians combated the Northwestern Pacific segment of the country. A group about 280 Shoshone individuals, the Tukadeka, were considered the sheep eaters due to their proficiency in hunting Rocky Mountain sheep. The campaign against the sheep eaters chiefly occurred in central Idaho. The issue causing the conflict was colonizers alleged that the Shoshone tribespeople stole the Indian Valley horses and murdered 3 colonizers in Idaho and Cascade after area navigation. The government also alleged that the Shoshone ambushed and murdered 2 miners at Pearsall Creek, some distance from Cascade. The war ended when the soldiers surrendered after the Army Umatilla and Cayuse Scouts pursued them.